jokingly back in August before the Burns night started, we did not anticipate anything like the positive response we have had. Indeed, so popular has it proved that I am reliably informed that tickets have recently been sold on eBay for in excess of 3 figures. There are 4 different malt whiskies available. If you don't want the one on your table, then you follow the old Scottish custom of raiding your neighbours to get the one that you do.
Mayor and Mayoress, wonderful councillors, my beloved colleague and mentor, Rabbi Plancy, along with Gervitson Plancy as well, and of course, our laddies and lassies for the evening, one and all. It gives me such great pleasure to have this opportunity to open up proceedings with the Celtic Grace. The Celtic Grace was a benediction offered by Robert Burns when he desperately needed a meal but was required to give thanks first. And I think that is probably very appropriate, as all of us are really in need of a meal this evening, but we must offer our thanks before we can receive it. And the thanks therefore must begin with a big thank you to the entire Burns Night committee that had made all this possible. A huge thank you to Leslie Pollock and all of the team for ensuring that not only will we enjoy the camaraderie of friendship this evening, but also it will be done in such wonderful taste as well. Hopefully. Finally, thanks must be given to God. After all, it isn't simply that we are giving thanks for what we are provided with this evening, but rather for what we are provided with every evening, that we give our thanks. And therefore, if I could please ask all to open up your books. Be seated.
Councillors, Rwandan, ladies and gentlemen, will you please ensure that your glasses have been fully charged? And I claim your attention for Mr. Alan Sternstein to give the address to the House.
It's found in the Routledge on page 3.
Bit of order for the haggis. And a small dagger.
Before yoni sonsy face, great chieftain of the Pun race, a boon yam I attack your place, pinch, trape, and third. Were you worthy for a grace as lines me are? The groaning trencher there you fill your hurdies like a distant hill. Your pin would help to mend the mill in time of need. While through your pores the dews distill, that's D-E-W-S, like amber wheat. Just in case anyone's got the wrong idea. His knife see rustic labours right, and cut ye up with ready sleight, trenching your gushing entrails bright like ony ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight! Warm, reeking, rich. Then, horn for horn, they stretch and stride. They'll tack ye hindmost only dry, till all the well-swelled kites belie are bent like drums. The old guide man, that's you. Max like Bethanket hums. Is there that our his French ragout or olio that would stir sow or fricassee would make her spew with perfect scunner? I hope you're following this. Looks down with sneering, scornful view on such a dinner. Poor devil, see him, o'er his rash and feckless with a withered rash, his spindle shank, a geed whiplash, his knee knit. Thou bloody flood, or field to dash, oh how unfit! But mark the rustic haggis fate, the trembling earth resounds his tread. Clap with his wally reeve a blade, he'll mak it whistle, and legs and arms and head will sned like trips of thistle. Give powers, oh mak mankind your care, and dish them out with bill of fare. All Scotland wants nae skinking ware, that jokes and luggies. But if you wish her grateful prayer, gira haggis! Now we toast to the haggis. Standing, the first toast of the evening to the haggis.
Will recite Burns' Hymn to the Common Man. A man's a man for all that.
Is there for honesty poverty that hangs his head and all that? The coward slave we pass him by, we dare be poor for all that. For all that and all that, our toils obscure and all that. The rank is but the guinea stamp, the man's the gold for all that. What though on hamely fare we dine, we're hodden grey and all that. He folks their silks and knaves their wine, a man's a man for all that. For all that and all that, their tinsel show and all that. The honest man, though e'er say poor, is king of men for all that. You see yon Bushey card a law, wha struts and stares and all that. The hundreds worship at his word, but he but a coof for all that. For all that, for all that. His ribbon star and all that, the man of independent mind, he looks and laughs at all that. A prince can mak a belted knight, a marquis, duke and all that, but an honest man's upon his might. Give faith he manna fall that. For all that and all that, their dignities are and all that. The pith of sense and pride of work are higher rank than all that. Then let us pray that come it may, as come it will for all that. That sense of worth o'er the earth shall bear the gree and all that, for all that and all that. It's coming yet for all that, that man to man the world o'er shall brothers be for all that.
Please take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, Rabonim, Rebbitzin, lasses, laddies, what an amazing, fabulous evening this is. I think huge thanks have to go to the committee, and particularly the chairman. And I have to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I've just returned from Turkey. I was speaking at a conference there, and there is a legend that says before a child enters this world, it's kissed by its guardian angel. And depending on where it's kissed, really determines the child's future. Let me give you an example. If the child is kissed on the hand, that child becomes a great artist or a great writer. If the child is kissed on the foot, it becomes a great athlete or a great sports person. Mr. Chairman, I don't know where your guardian angel kissed you, but you make an excellent chairman. Now, I'm not entirely sure why that's the first time I've heard it as well. It's quite good. I'm not sure why I was chosen, because I'm only from Manchester. So there's some real Scots here tonight. I mean, Stuart Lesser, Gary Harris, Harry Bibbering, some real Scots in the room, and they chose me. Simon Moore, but they chose me. I'm only partly. No, you're from America. Yeah. And growing up in the north, in Manchester, in the late 50s and the early 60s, wasn't easy. It was tough. I do remember as a very small child, just before my father returned from work, my mother would literally get a tin bath out and put it out in front of the fire, and as he came through the door, she used to strip him off, she used to put him in the bath, and she scrubbed him from head to toe. No idea why she did it, he was an accountant. And in fact, save it, I've got a very weak finish, please. In fact, I do remember we had a poor upbringing. In fact, we used to get our clothes from the army surplus store, and it's not a lot of fun as a 5-year-old on your first day at school dressed as a Japanese general, I can tell you. In fact, I was 9 before I realised that piggy bank wasn't actually the gas meter, but that's the other way around. Anyway, so I wasn't particularly popular as a child either. In fact, they used to have to tie a lamb chop to my leg to get the dog to play with me, but there you go. Men and women are very different, and I did a little bit of research in terms of this lads. The first time I've had this honour of doing the address and the toast of the lasses, so I did a bit of research, and some of you maybe know some of this stuff, but the difference between men and women. So for example, men always remove their shirt from the back of the neck. Yes? No women do that. Women always do it from there, don't they? Excuse me. Have you seen that? You noticed that? That's one. In terms of choosing soap, how do men choose soap? Well, whichever one's in front of them. Women, it tends to be, you know, what's the scent? Does it have natural ingredients, anti-aging properties? The comparative research they do, is the bottle recyclable? There's one other difference, if you like. In terms of looking at our nails, we tend to do it palms up, women do it palms down. That's another one. And also, if we go to a simcha, the men are both wearing the same shirt, we're brothers. Women go to a simcha with the same dress on, oi, they. Now, I can't speak for everybody's marriage or relationship, but I'm very lucky. I married a very wonderful woman. She, on the other hand, is not so lucky. We've been blissfully happily married for 3 years, 1991, 2003, and 2011. And we've often been described as the perfect couple as well, with the integrity, resilience, intelligence, and good looks of Nicole, and the good humour, generosity, and sincerity of Nicole. I would like to congratulate Nicole actually on reaching the personal milestone recently of 55, which is a pretty high IQ for a dietitian. Nicole actually has just finished her second book as well. She's going to start colouring her third in the morning. I wouldn't say she's stupid, obviously I wouldn't say that, but she set the alarm for 6 this morning, and there's only 4 of us. She'd know, yes. I can explain these as we go along if you like. She found some petrol in a puddle and she thought she found a dead rainbow. No, she didn't. She was teaching our dog to wee in the gutter and she fell off the roof and nearly killed herself. But seriously, I'd like to actually just refer to the rabbi's sermon on Shabbat, if I may. And actually, it did strike a chord with me. And we talked about a stranger in a strange land. And the name Gershon was mentioned as well, which is Exodus 2, chapter 22. And I am the son of Gershon. My father is Yaakov ben Gershon. And there are times before I met Nicole where I did feel like a stranger in a strange land going to shul, because my upbringing in Manchester was very anglicised, very English. I went to an English prep school. I then went away to an English public school, very, very English public school. We went to synagogue, not shul. We had prayer books. We didn't have Sidurim and Masorim, they were prayer books. We fasted on the Day of Atonement, and we enjoyed New Year's Day. All of those things. So it wasn't it was a very English anglicised upbringing. And my dad never ever went to Israel, and he's 97, please God, this year, and has never been to Israel, and will never go to Israel. My first trip was the Maccabea Games of 1985. I was 27, the first time I'd ever been to Israel. And I remember very, very well, and very distinctly, that I walked into that opening ceremony, and I walked around with 50,000 people in that stadium, standing shoulder to shoulder with thousands of Jewish athletes from all corners of the world. And when they played Hatikvah, tears started rolling down my face. And I realised there was something missing. And I realised then at that moment, what I wanted was a Jewish wife. Someone who would help me understand better about community. Someone who would understand about having a kosher home, about going to shul and getting involved. And 5 years later, I was very fortunate that I met the amazing Nicole, and we were married. And you will all have your own stories about your own lasses. And I hope that I'm speaking on behalf of everybody when I just talk about mine, that what she's done, she's made the most wonderful home. She's helped me bring up 2 amazing boys, now men of course. She's taught me so much, she's inspired me. She's my best friend. And I've been called many things. I used to be called Emily Tyler's grandson. Then I was Jeffrey Rothband's son for a while. I've been Jack and Harry Rothband's father. But actually, nothing makes me more proud than being called Nicole Rothband's husband. And I think, you may not know this, but when I did my research, finally, ladies and gentlemen, and I know that many people here will know, that actually lasses originally were not allowed in to burn the suppers. Their job was simply to prepare the meal, and they were asked to come in and they were thanked in this way. Well, it's amazing and quite right that the lasses are all here and they're all amazingly welcome and you're all doing a wonderful, amazing job. And with that in mind, could I please ask you all to charge your glasses and be outstanding.
You'll understand at the end of my speech that you'll see why I've never been to a Burns night before. And I'm deeply embarrassed. But thank you very much for asking me to respond to the lovely words that Nigel addressed to all the lovely ladies assembled here. As you can see, I've tried to make a bit of an effort with the dress, the clothing. Didn't have much tartan, so, I thought, well, I'll do my best, and I got my son to make this lovely bow thing out of a handkerchief, and I know it's not really the done thing in Jewish circles for ladies to wear men's clothing, but I thought, you know, if the rabbi's wearing a skirt, I think I can go. So, some of you may know that I went back to university about 15 years ago to retrain as a dietitian. So food is an important part of my life, and I have to say, I'm really enjoying the food that's being served up here tonight. So there's lots of controversy about food, and it's always raging in the papers, and it's not a new thing. You know, in the days of Robbie Burns, he wrote about oats that they were the healthsome porridge, chief of Scotia's food. However, Samuel Johnson described oats as a grain which in England is generally given to horses, but in Scotland supports the people. A dietitian's view is that it's a slow-release, low GI carbohydrate that helps low cholesterol, and I think there may be some gentlemen here that may think getting their oats is something completely different. Although this, I'll bring my own ventriloquist on, thank you. Although this is Burns night, I wanted to see if the Jewish canon contains something that could help me in my toast to the laddies. And I have to say, laddies, you're all looking very, very fine this evening. Something similar maybe to Eshet Chayil, where every Friday night in Jewish homes, husbands describe the virtues of their God-fearing wives, describing them as far more precious than rubies. Describing her list of skills. She knits, she weaves, feeds her family and staff if she has them. She's a successful businesswoman, a farmer who provides food for the table. She keeps her lamps lit and her family warm, even in inclement weather. She is strong and prepared for all eventualities, speaks with wisdom and loving kindness. But even though I searched, I couldn't find anything. And maybe that's because I'm just not very learned, and there were probably more scholarly people here that could find something and point me in the right direction, but I drew a blank. So rather than focusing on the differences, as Nigel did, between men and women, I thought I would look a little bit at the similarities between us. Now, take Nigel, for example, and I'm sure this will ring true with many of the gentlemen in this room. He is what is now just used to be described as a new man. And I'm sure many of you men are here too, these laddies around the room. He joined me and joins me still in providing financially for our family. He has taken an active part in choosing the furniture and decor to create our home. He shops, he cooks, actually very well. His chicken soup is far superior to mine. He irons, he hates it, but I know there are some guys that do love ironing. I wish he was one of them actually. He does the laundry. He was brilliant with the kids, changed nappies, rocked them to sleep, gave them feeds in the middle of the night when I couldn't pull myself out of bed. He was fantastic. And he even, if really, really, really pushed, will clean the house. So, thank you, Nigel, and all you lovely laddies here that do the same things, who take your share of household chores and responsibilities and support their lasses in these pursuits. But you know, some of the old myths, despite all this gender equality, still persist, such as women being lousy drivers or not able to park. And this reminded me of the time I heard on the radio that a car was driving the wrong way up the M6. Oy vey, I thought. Nigel's on the M6 going to Manchester. Quickly, I picked up the phone and rang him. Darling, I said, I just heard on the news there's a car going the wrong way on the M6. Please be careful. It's not one car, he said, there's hundreds of them. Joking aside, I decided that maybe I was looking in the wrong direction. So I turned to our rabbi. No, not our Rebbe or our rabbi, our rabbi, and found the answer in the sweetest of his poems. So lovely, gorgeous, handsome, wonderful laddies, this is for you. Oh, my love's like a red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like the melody that sweetly plays in tune. As fair thou art, my bonny lad, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. Till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. And I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. And fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee will a while, and I will come again, my love, 'twere though 10,000 mile. Ladies, lasses, please charge your glasses and be upstanding. The toast is the laddies.
He went to the bank and he said to the teller at the bank, he said, I'd like to speak to the manager, please. To which she said, I'm sorry, he passed away last week. Oh. Half an hour later he goes back and he says to the teller again, can I speak to the manager, please? She said, I told you he passed away last week. Oh. A third time he went back, this time she said, why do you keep asking? I've told you he passed away. To which he turned around and said, every time I hear you say it gives me such pleasure. Such an introduction, I would have loved to have this introduction tonight, but really let me wish you, together with your wonderful Rebbetzin, every happiness and success in the Bushey community. You'll prove to be tremendous in the success, I promise you. You just have to do yourself, your own thing, and you will see everybody will love you. Dear colleagues, council colleagues, Mr. Mayor, sir.
There's some here.
All right. I love that. I go back and tell him off. Normally at council we have to stand up for you. Tonight you're going to stand up for me. It's lovely to welcome you and Jane here tonight, seriously. You've been a fantastic success in the council. Welcome all my colleagues who have come here. They're all on the same side, by the way. I've got to be careful because here, I remember when I first stood for politics, somebody from Bushey came and he's here, but I won't say who it was, and he told me that I shouldn't get involved in politics. And I said, I didn't get involved in politics, I'm a politician. So there's less politics, let me tell you, in the political world than there is in the United States. But tonight, you know, it really is wonderful being here with so many people. And especially we're celebrating the Scots. The story's told of a very, very wealthy sheik had a serious illness, and the doctors were worried because he had a special blood type that nobody had. So they advertised whoever had this blood type really could come along and save this man's life. Well, there was a Scotsman, and he phoned up and he said, I've got that blood, I'll give you with pleasure. He came, he gave him his blood, and the sheik was cured. Oh, it was wonderful. A couple of weeks later, he sent the Scotsman a beautiful new car, a Rolex watch, a wonderful cheque. You can imagine all the presents you could think of. Sadly, the sheik took ill a few months later and he needed another transfusion. So the Scotsman came back again and gave him his blood. Only this time, he didn't hear from him. So he phoned him up and he said, what happened? The last time you gave me all the presents, what happened? He said, lad, he said, you've forgotten, I've got Scottish blood in me now. You see, I'm trying to put off this toast to this guy called Robbie Burns. He was a bit of a hooligan, and you'll see in a minute what sort of a life he led. how you can even compare me, I tell you, I'm sorry. And after hearing what husbands do for their wives, I'm in trouble already. But I go to a lot of weddings, and it's always wonderful some of these bridegrooms get up to speak. And one wedding I'll never ever forget, where the bridegroom had eaten some chicken that got stuck in his tooth. And he's going mad. And he started, Mr. Chairman. He said, my darling parents, my dear wife, my new in-laws. Very, very careful what you say. And tonight, I must tell you, I've been sitting next to the rabbi, and boy oh boy, does he like the scotch. It was like the vicar was giving his first sermon, and the bishop had come to the church. He was petrified. And the bishop said to him, he said, look, he said, there's nothing wrong. Take a glass, he said, of gin or vodka, it looks like water, and sip it a little, it'll give you confidence. So what did he do, the idiot? Drank the whole glass and got into the pulpit, gave his sermon. At the end he came down and he asked the bishop, he said, tell me, how was it? He said, your theme was wonderful. He said, but please, next time it's Father, Son and the Holy Spirit, not Bob, Junior and Spock. Now, these stories are quite funny because we're here tonight to praise a man who lived a dreadful life, a short life, but boy oh boy, he was a womanizer, he was an alcoholic, he was everything you can think of. I'm going to take you through a little bit of his life, and, sorry? So, he was born in Ayrshire, in Alloway, in 1759, to William Burness. He was a poor tenant farmer. He was there with Robert, was the oldest of 7 children. And sadly, his life was full of poverty. He was employed by his father to work on the farm. And many of the stories that he wrote, you will see, were connected to the farm as well. When his father died, he took over as a partner in the business, in the farm, but he wasn't much interested in the farm. He was a romantic. He spent his time womanizing. And we find that with his misadventures resulting in many illegitimate children over the years, but eventually he had twins from one woman whom he actually married. The father allowed him to marry this woman. That was Jane Armour. That was Jean Armour. He married her, unfortunately for a very, very short time. He died at the age of 37 from a heart disease which was exacerbated by the hard work. I'm not sure it was with the fields or with the women, I'm not quite sure. But unfortunately, it occurred on the same day as his wife's. And that's why I beg your pardon, the same day as his wife Jane gave birth to his last son, Maxwell. So let's go through a little bit of his life. Born on the 25th of January, and despite the extreme poverty, Burns' father ensured that he had a very good education. He got him a tutor. And when he died at 37, you should know, 10,000 people attended his funeral. Wow. So you see, and I can remember, this is the truth, but I'm going to tell you. I had a funeral at Bushey, the other side, and there must have been about 700-800 people there. And I went over to one of them, as it happened, there was quite a number of non-Jewish people as well there. I went up to one and said, what are you all doing here? He said, we want to make sure the guy's really gone. And this was the truth, because he was he played polo and he lost his temper, and I think with what he was playing with one of the royal family, his polo stick had walloped one of them. So, and he had about 12 wives or something, so you can just imagine. But let's go through his life of Robert Burns. We're here tonight. Some people call him Chief Rabbi of Scotland, Rabbi Burns, but I'm not quite sure. And I still to this day don't understand why we have this party tonight, but we'll think about it. He started off, and you've just heard, an ode to a louse, that little insect. He was in church, and he watched this little louse burying its way into an attractive young woman's hair, sitting in the pew in front of him. So he tells the little louse off, having nerve. And again I'll read it to you. Ha, where are you going, you crowd and furly? Your impudence protects you, surly. I can't say you've struck barely, or gauze and lace, that means through the hair, nor faith I fear ye die but sparely, or sick of place. Of course, Burns being Burns points out that to the louse it doesn't matter how posh the host is. As far as he was concerned, a scalp was a scalp. I mean, actually, the girl in question, whom he saw it, turned out not to be such a posh woman. In fact, she was one of Robbie's, shall we say, friends. She was called Jenny, but she was dressed in a Sunday best. We go a little bit bigger. Just watch how he goes, starting off with the louse. He goes on to a mouse, and he recognises the plight of the mouse, whose nest he's overturned with his plough, as being very similar to his own desperate existence as a poor tenant farm. He appeals to the tiny animal never to be afraid, and indeed that two beings with so much in common should not have anything to fear from each other. We sleek at corn timorous beastie, or were a panic in that beastie. There needn't start a war so hasty with bicker and brattle. I would be later in and chase thee with murder and prattle. John Steinbeck, you may know, one of the America's greatest writers, borrowed a line from this poem, and he used it as the title of his great work, Of Mice and Men. A powerful and moving portrayal of the trials and tribulations of poor migrant farmers in the California of the Great Depression. I wonder what they will write soon with Mr. Trump there. Let's now move on. He goes around, next thing he moves up is to the single man. To Burns, all men were born equal, and a man's worth doesn't depend on how much he has in his purse or how big the acreage of his estate. The most famously stated in the song, "A man's a man for all that and all that." Is there for honest poverty that hangs his head in all that? The coward slave we pass him by, we dare be poor for all that. For all that and all that, our toils obscure and all that, the rank is but the guinea's stamp, the man's the god for all that. Upsizing again, just watch, he wrote hundreds and hundreds of poems, but there is a theme to each one as he moved up in his age. We come to his poetry describing the nature of love that can exist between two people in a fond kiss. He encapsulates both the ecstasy and pain of love. He reduces everything to one basic and overpowering emotion, the emotion of having loved and then having to part. Sir Walter Scott commented that this poem, Burns sums up the essence of 1,000 loves and tales, and furthermore, this is one verse is worth 1,000 romances. A fond kiss, and then we sever, a farewell and then forever. Deep in heart, wrung tears I'll pledge thee, one sighs and groans I'll wedge thee. Who shall say that fortune grieves him, while the star of hope she leaves him? Me, the cheerful twinkle lights me, dark despair around benights me. And then we've got the genius of Burns. And everybody knows this. And that's Burns at his biggest and his most universal. As the bells chime in with the example of Burns' genius, we're familiar with this, and at the same time, Burns at his biggest is most universal. When the bells chime to usher in the new year across the world, millions sing his words of brotherhood and hope. Of course, should all acquaintance be forgot, and then it finishes. And there's a hand, my trusty for you, and gi's a hand o' thine, and we'll tak right gate willie wad for old lang syne. Friends, I've always wondered, why is it we get together like lunatics, because you know I'm in a lousy cold night, to come and celebrate a guy who was a philanderer. And yet, since the 18th century, we're here now in the 21st century, 22nd century. What would you have made of modern society and technology with the computers and the internet in particular? What would you have made of ROM and RAM, megabytes and gigabytes? Well, perhaps he would have thought a Google was a small furry creature that was native to the Scottish Highlands, or even a distant cousin of the haggis. And how different, of course, might have been his famous poem To a Mouse. I'd like to read you now the modern version that Robert Burns would have written to our mouse. And I'm talking about the mouse of the computer. We sleek and current timorous beastie, of faded plastic, all pale and yeasty, with 2 wee buttons and a beveled wheel. I really love the way you feel. Against my hand as you roll around, you wee mouse mat with the sound. It's true there are cracks now in your casing, and your roller ball may need replacing, but still you plough on strong and tireless, whilst those around you are all now wireless. And suddenly, with their warning, in an act made of the devil's spawning, where once it was upon the screen, your little arrow can no more be seen. Blood pressure rising and lips a-pursing, instead of a cursor, there now is cursing. And now your wheel is also sticky, despite my frantic button clicking. But unfortunately, this sort of trick cannot be cured with a double click. The system's crashed. There's just one route. Control, Alt, Delete, and then reboot. I, we sleek and current timorous beastie, of faded plastic, all pale and yeasty, sitting smugly on your wee mouse back, you name me a mouse of mine, you dirty rat. Looking aside, suffice to say that you've got here about 170 people here tonight on this cold night, and we're drinking to celebrate the life of someone born over 250 years ago, and over from Scotland's 100 miles away. And yet it's a testament indeed to the literary genius that was Burns, Robert Burns. The fact that over 90% of those gathered here tonight, you should know, are Sassenachs. I really mean that. You're all shitting, you've all come on, you're laughing your heads off. Perhaps next year, we'll scrap Burns night and organise a William Shakespeare afternoon tea. Maybe a Geoffrey Archer champagne. A shepherd's pie dinner, you never know. But of course not, I guess. Once immortal, always immortal. So ladies and gentlemen, let me say to conclude to thank you most sincerely for inviting myself and my wife to join you here tonight to celebrate this guy whom I will never try to emulate. I'm very happy with one wife. I'm very happy. And I'm not going to do the ironing or the washing. But my lassie's my lassie, and for over 50 years we'll be there for the next 50 as well, so I don't mind. So thank you very much indeed, truly, for having invited me tonight to come. If you live in the south of Boreham Wood, please, I'm standing for election again. Now, really, I'm thrilled and delighted, and seriously tonight, that the councillors that we have here, Councillor Silver is your member of the show. We've got Seamus Aquilty. Sorry? Oh, you're a member as well?
Oh, I do, thank you.
You come, that's the question there. But it's lovely, Paul Morris, it's lovely to have you, Quilty, to you and your wife. Jean, I'm sorry, Brenda. By the way, Brenda, I want to say, I wish you every luck and success, please God. It's an unofficial secret. Brenda, it's unofficial. Not allowed? No, not allowed. Secret. Confidential. Can't tell you. Oh, it's all right. Next month you'll know. Also to say to Amir and Amiras, you've been wonderful, wonderful friends to the Jewish community. I asked, by the way, could I say it? I was told, yeah, you wait. Seriously, Peter J., you've been a tremendous friend to the community, to the whole of Hertfordshire, and Hartsfield in particular. And I hope the next few months will be a great success for all of you, for you both, and your charities and everything that you're doing. And I hope it's 6 o'clock and 6:30 to the Granite Centre. And I'd love to see all of you coming, because tonight we've celebrated, but next week we have to commemorate and we have to remember those people, those martyrs who lost their lives, a different martyr. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, to an immortal